Hello everyone and welcome to my first lesson. So in this lesson we will be focusing on learning how to learn. And I believe that this topic is very important to begin with because not only does it help us to achieve 100% out of this course, but it also helps us to build that habit of learning in the future. Many of us have this experience of traditional learning that focuses heavily on academic ways of teaching. It makes us learn a lot of grammar and focus hard on learning big lists of vocabulary and so on, but it doesn't really give a result that we usually want from English, and that is to be able to speak without stress, without anxiety, to be fluent, and to feel comfortable with the language. And what I will try to show you today is a new way of learning that focuses mainly on these real-life situations of handling stress and just building that passive and active way of learning. And in my experience, there are three most important parts of effective learning. And now let's go to those three parts and look at them. So, the first part focuses on creating a safe space to practice English. And that means having someone to speak with and to shift your experience from the anxious one into a safe one. The second part focuses on creating a habit out of participating in the language. That means either books or YouTube videos or podcasts and so on, consuming them in English. And the third part, probably the most difficult part, is showing up and doing the work, putting in the effort to improve. And now let's go and dig deeper into each of these parts. So, the first part focuses on creating that safe space to practice this language. What I mean by that is, for example, when I work with my students who struggle with anxiety in speaking, is that first of all, I would say the first couple of lessons just focus on practicing in speaking. That means I ask them a lot of questions and we're speaking at their level. I don't try to scare them or to correct their mistakes, but I just accept their level, I accept them in that language, and what that really does is that it shifts that experience from being an anxious one into being a safe one. I would say that this is probably the most important part out of all the three, because many of us have this experience of either in a workplace situation or we're traveling where we're speaking in English, but we forget all of these simple words or we don't know how to ask a question, and it does really affect our confidence. This type of practice, it really helps us to understand that everything is okay and that there is no problem with our level. Nobody really focuses on our mistakes apart from us focusing on those mistakes. So my advice would be find a tutor or a friend or a family member who you can trust and with whom you can have this practice. I really do recommend first to work with a tutor because they will be more professional and they will understand this more. And especially if a tutor focuses on spoken language improvement rather than academic improvement. Now we can go to the second part. And this part focuses on creating a habit out of participating in a language. What that means is when you wake up and, for example, you have your coffee and read the news, or in the evening you watch some TV series or you listen to podcasts, I would say that doing that in English is a very great way to introduce the language into your life and create that habit. What it does is essentially you not only improve your vocabulary, but also the language becomes more logical and it starts to make more sense to you. And I really see that in my students, and the ones that actually improve the most are the ones that make that shift from, instead of consuming all of this content in their native language, little by little increasing the amount and doing that in English. I know that a lot of you might be concerned about the fact that, my level is not so great, and what if I don't understand those words? What if I don't understand this sentence? That is something that you shouldn't focus on. What you should focus on is, do you understand the main idea? And if you do, then it's all great. What that does is basically you don't understand some words. That is absolutely natural and normal. With time, after hearing a certain word 10 times, 100 times, you will know what it means just from context. And this is a very, very great way to learn passively instead of doing exercises that you don't like, that are boring, but learn passively through context. Of course, for that you have to understand the main idea, but if you do, this is a very great way to improve your language without putting in this crazy amount of effort. In the beginning, you can do that very slowly, and you can do only 15 minutes per day. As long as you're comfortable, you can increase that time each week. Just have that improvement little by little. It is a tremendous amount of help in improving vocabulary and improving the logic of understanding the language. As I said, creating that habit little by little is probably one of the most effective ways to learn words rather than trying to learn these huge lists of vocabulary. And now I think we can go to the third part. And this part focuses on showing up and doing the work. What I mean with this is that it's not enough to imagine that you're going to create a habit, or you're going to work with a tutor, you're going to buy all of these courses or books, and you will magically learn that language. What is really, really important, and I would say quite hard, is putting in that effort and showing up. If you booked a course, actually doing the lessons and participating in them. If you started to work with a tutor, then not skipping lessons and being there and participating in those lessons. This requires definitely less effort than your classic approach of grammar and exercises and so on, but it still requires effort. And I would say that starting off slowly but doing it consistently is definitely more effective than doing everything in 1 week and then not doing anything for the rest of the month. Staying consistent and doing it little by little is the best way to stay motivated and to see results. I would say that this part is really just about that, just about showing up, being there for yourself, trying to stay motivated and not pushing yourself too hard to the point where you start hating that experience of learning. So staying consistent, checking up with yourself how you feel, and showing up and doing the actual work to improve. Now that we have talked about these parts in more depth, I would say that we can recap and see what we have learned. So again, these 3 parts of learning are, first of all, creating that safe space to practice, shifting the experience from an anxious one into a safe one. That way, giving yourself confidence and comfort in participating in this language. Second part is creating a habit and building a routine with this language to help yourself passively improve your vocabulary and understand the logic of the language. The third part is showing up and doing the work, right? Now that we have repeated these 3 parts, I would like for us to focus on the exercises that we have for this lesson. In every single lesson, I will try to give you that ability to build that habit, and you will have some little exercises to complete. You can do that slowly at your own pace, however you like. And I guess let's go to our first exercise. Our first exercise is about creating a studying plan. I believe this is very important if we want to achieve the right results and, again, to create that habit of learning, and a studying plan really, really helps with that. First of all, I would focus on writing down and highlighting the goals that you have for this course or in general for learning, and then just scheduling the time and scheduling the tasks for each of the week that you're going to study. You can do that actually in your schedule and just put in the time slots for your tasks, but do that however you like to do that. The second task that we have is reading an article. Here I'm trying just to help you build that habit of learning, and this article is about learning how to learn. Again, we're repeating our main topic. What I want you to do here is to just focus on the main idea, not to focus on the words that you don't know or some new vocabulary, but just on the main idea. Do you understand it? Is it interesting for you? Maybe you're getting some ideas. And after this, if you want to, you can focus on some new words and maybe create a list for yourself to learn. But in general, it's not very important. The most important part is for you to just focus on understanding the main idea. Then we can go to our third part. And the third part is, again, fairly simple. It's just a video to watch about our main topic, which is the science of learning. It will be very, very, very similar to the reading, but it will just help you repeat the information. And maybe if you're not a big reader, a YouTube video is better for you. Again, here you have to focus on the main idea, and only after that, after you've had a great time, you just watch the video. If you want to, you can try and translate some new words and try to learn them. But in general, again, just focusing on the main idea. Right. And that's all for our tasks. Now that we have looked through all the 3 exercises that you have for this lesson, I would say that we can finish up. And now everything that's left is for you to try and adapt this new way of learning in your life and in this course. So good luck and see you in our second lesson. Bye! Hello everyone, and welcome to our second lesson. So in this lesson, we will be focusing on interviews. I would say that this lesson is really, really important because it is the focus of this course, and many of us know that in order to get better pay and have better career opportunities, very often we need to work in international companies, and that's where people who are not native English speakers can have some difficulties. And in this lesson, we will try to go through some ways that you can put yourself ahead and prepare for the interview in a way that helps you succeed and get the position that you want. So we will focus on the preparation process for the interview, the common questions you can get asked, the questions you can ask for the HR, and also how to answer the questions that HR asks you, as well as going through the interview itself, the process of the interview, and how to handle the stress of participating in that interview, right? So now let's dig deeper into the preparation process. The first step in preparing for your interview is researching the company that you're applying to. It gives you an advantage over other people and also helps you with stress and confidence when you research not only the position that you would like to apply for, but also the company that you're applying to. So when doing your research, I suggest to focus on the company's values, the mission, and any recent developments that might be important, because very often in the interview process, you not only talk about yourself and what you can offer to the position, but you can often get asked about your values, how you see the company itself, why you're interested in the company. If you have those answers, if you have the information about the company, you can really project yourself and adjust yourself in the interview according to those companies' values. I would say that another thing that is really important is, if possible, to talk to anyone who has worked in the company or is still working in the company, and you can ask them about their own experience with the interview process and maybe some advice that could help you in that process as well, because each company has, different HR, different mindset, and it really, really helps to know someone who has already gone through that. And now we can go to the second step of the preparation process. And the second step is understanding the position that you are applying to. When analyzing the position, you should focus on the description, on the skills that they require, and any experience that they're asking for. Another thing in analyzing the position is understanding what you yourself can offer for the company that they're not asking in the description of the position. Maybe you have some soft or hard skills that you could offer that would be valuable for this company. So you need to ask yourself, what are the skills that I can offer? Maybe I am very good with people. Maybe I handle difficult situations really well. Maybe it's very easy for me to communicate, or maybe I'm very, very loyal and I stay in the company for a really long time, which nowadays is very valuable because a lot of people tend to leave the company after 6 months or a year, which is a short period of time. Understanding these skills and communicating them to the HR can definitely help you put ahead of other candidates, because probably most of them will already have the skills required, and paying attention and communicating any skills that you have that could add value to the company can help you to succeed in the interview process. And now we can go to the third step. The third step focuses on using all the available resources to learn and prepare for your interview. What I mean by that is that on the internet there is an unlimited amount of information available for interviews, and I would say that doing your own research and understanding where you lack in the interviews or where you could improve, and listening to podcasts about such topics, reading articles, googling the questions that you have, can really help you in this preparation process. In this lesson you will find my favorite options added, and you will have them for homework and for tasks that you need to complete. But if you have any specific ideas of what would help you, definitely focus on that and do your own research. Search for podcasts in YouTube, or put your energy and focus on the material that I will give you in this lesson. I would say that if possible, it is really helpful to take a day or two, or maybe just a couple of hours, and really go through these podcasts and articles. Focus on the vocabulary that they are using. Focus on the questions that they are talking about, because usually these are the people that are the best of the best, that have experience in hiring and have experience in the interview process. And listening to them, again, does give you that advantage over other candidates, gives you confidence because you are preparing, and helps you to maybe find out some things that you don't know about the interviews. Also gives you some lessons in the success of the interviews, which is very important for you personally to ace those interviews and succeed. Now that we have finished with the third part, we can go to the fourth one. And the fourth part focuses on understanding, are you qualified for the position you're applying to? And it's definitely not a problem if you're not 100% qualified for the position you're applying to, because you can definitely take some courses and enroll in some programs before applying, or you can let HR know that you are currently studying or you have a lot of motivation to study. So analyze the requirements for the qualification. If possible, I definitely recommend taking a week or two and studying for the position. If there is only one specific position that you would like to work in, you can take even a longer period of time and learn anything that you need to learn to feel confident in the application process. But definitely don't stress. I know a lot of people who apply to positions without having all the qualifications, but they are usually very motivated people, and HR can feel this, and you can always let them know that you're willing to study, that you're studying now, and you're willing to improve to get this position. So I would say that these are the 4 most important parts that you need to focus on in order to prepare for the interview. And now we can look through all the questions that HR can ask you, how to answer them, and the questions that you could ask HR yourself. And before we look through all of these questions, I would just like to say that one really important thing is to focus and think about how you would answer these questions, because I will only give you some examples of common answers, but you will have your own personal experience, and it is definitely very important to focus and understand on how you can take advantage of your own answers. And this is where language can really help you, because you can say things in a very simple way, or you can say things in a way that helps you sell yourself to the HR, right? One way to do that is when thinking about questions that HR could ask you in your specific position, you can think about how I would answer these questions. What skills do I have? What experience do I have that puts me ahead of others? And how I could express that in a way that sells me, sells my idea. Now that we have looked through all the questions, let's look at one more very, very amazing thing that you can do to ace your interviews and succeed in getting the position of your dreams. And that one thing would be to have a trial interview and to practice with someone your interview process. And you can definitely do that with a professional that focuses on interview training, or you can do that with a tutor that knows and maybe specializes in spoken English or has experience in helping people prepare for the interview. What this does is that it really, really helps you to, again, be more confident and handle the stress, but it also shows you maybe some weaknesses that you have during the interview or things that you should focus on in the preparation. So having that practice can really help you put yourself ahead of others, and also you might get some personalized notes from the person that you're practicing with. But of course you can do that with a friend or anyone that is willing to help you, but I really, really do recommend doing that with a professional, and you can find some people that could help you on Preply. There are some amazing tutors that specialize in a lot of different topics, or you can contact me and book a private lesson, because I as well help prepare for interviews. And now that we have talked about this amazing thing, which is having the trial interview, I would say that we can go to the tasks that we have for this lesson. As I said, we will be focusing on some podcasts and articles, and now we can go and look through our first task. So here we have common interview questions. You will find this entire list in the description of the lesson. I will add this document, and here are the questions that HR or whoever that is interviewing you. Of course, you will probably have different questions, but these are some great questions that I believe have a lot of value in just answering them and thinking how you could answer them. And maybe you will have some of these questions, and that will just help you with, having great answers and preparation. So the first question is, tell me about yourself. Of course, I would say that in every interview, they will ask you to talk about yourself. I would say that a great way to answer this is to keep it short and simple, but sort of positive, and, just mention maybe some great things about yourself. Think how you could describe yourself, but in a short way, and don't do it for too long. Then the second question is, why do you want to work for our company? I believe answering this question is quite important, and to answer it in a motivated way. So you want to sell that part that you really want to work in this company, because that means that you would be loyal and you would stay there for longer. And this is very important for the company itself. You can answer it by maybe mentioning some values that you agree with and that align with you, maybe some great projects that they have worked on that you are passionate about, and just sell that idea that you're motivated to work in this company. Then the third question is, what attracted you to this role? So this is quite simple. You can just answer honestly what attracted you to this role. Then fourth question is, can you describe your experience with specific skill or technology? This is also quite straightforward. You just describe that experience, or if you don't have that experience, I would say you should mention that you are willing and you are motivated to learn those skills or learn how to use some software or technology. Then fifth question is, how do you handle challenges or difficult situations? Again, think about that. Think how you would answer that. I will give you some answers here to read on, and you can use that, but think personally, how do you do that? And of course, do that in a positive way. Then sixth is, what projects are you most proud of? Again, straightforward. 7, how do you stay updated on industry trends? So this is very important, because I would say that nowadays it is very important to be sort of updated updated on the trends, with artificial intelligence and so on. It is quite important to keep up and understand what is happening. And that is actually a very big advantage for a lot of people, because we have a lot of professionals that just don't keep up with everything that is happening because there's a lot of things happening. So I would say mention, maybe you watch some YouTube videos, maybe you read some newsletters or Harvard Business Review or anything similar that helps you keep up with those trends, or maybe you try out some new tools, and mentioning that is a very, very good way to sell yourself. Then 8 is explain a complex technical concept to someone with a non-technical background. This is actually a very, very good question. I would say this is not only important in an interview, but it is important in general in life. Think about that. Think how you could explain something that is more complex to someone who has no idea or doesn't understand that concept at all. Yeah, I would say that this is quite important. Do that not only for the interview, but just for yourself. There's a lot of value in this 8 point. Then 9 is how do you prioritize tasks and manage your time? This is fairly simple. You can watch some productivity videos on YouTube. Think about how you could answer this question. Then 10 is tell us about a situation where you worked in a team to solve a problem. Here they want to check your team skills. So of course, think about how you handle working with a team and answer that honestly. 11 is where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is also a very great way for HR to check your motivation and if you are highly productive person. So this is a great opportunity to sell yourself. I would describe this in a very positive way, and all the things that you want to achieve, where you see yourself in career, mention those things definitely. Describe that to yourself before the interview. This is really, really helpful. Then 12 is what do you know about our products or services? Again, they want to see how much you know about the company. If you do know a lot and you're interested in the company, you have done your research, that shows them that you're motivated to work there, that you want to work there. So again, you are above the candidates that don't know anything about the company and come there unprepared. So again, read and research the company before you go there. Then 13, how do you approach learning new technologies or skills? This is, again, for them, it's very important that you understand innovation, that you understand where the world is now when it comes to all of these new technologies. And with AI, this is moving very, very fast. And for them, it is important to know that you can keep up. So you have to show that you actually can keep up. You understand all of these new technologies and you have the skills to deal with them. 14 is what's your experience with Agile or Scrum methodologies? Some of you maybe have no experience with this. So I do suggest doing your research and read some articles or watch some videos. There is plenty of information out there. So read and think about your answer, how you could answer that. There is a chance that nobody will ask you that, but in general, I would say it's important to understand Agile and Scrum methodologies. Then 15 is, can you provide an example of a project that didn't go as planned and how you handled it? So they want to understand if you can accept failure and if you can learn from that, because of course there are a lot of people who are overconfident or not confident enough, and they just want to check if you are at that level where you are able to accept and understand that you can make mistakes and you will make mistakes, and it is important to show that you know how to handle it and you know how to learn from that. That is all with these common interview questions, and then we have answers. I'm not going to read this because these are just examples, but definitely go through this and read and think about how you would answer them, and maybe there is some vocabulary that you could use for your own answers, and this is a great way to prepare. And now we can go to questions that we can ask in our interviews. It is a very important thing to prepare the questions that you would ask in your interview, because it does make you look more professional and it sells you in that way that you care about this position and you want to know everything. And it's not only them that are interested in you, but it's also you who is interested in them. So asking smart questions is a great way to put yourself ahead in this interview. So the first question is, can you describe the team dynamic and the working culture here? This is a very, very good question because it shows that you're interested. It shows that you're willing to work with the team, and the dynamic and the culture is important. And nowadays, working culture is quite a big thing, and every single company has a different culture. So it is important that it matches your ideas. The second question is, what opportunities are there for professional development and advancement within the company? This again shows that you are motivated and you do want to develop and advance in your career. It's important to ask that of the company. Third question is, how do you handle employee feedback and performance reviews? It is quite important to have that if you want to improve and grow. So asking this of a company and clarifying is a great way to show that you're willing to grow. The fourth question is, can you share more about the projects the team is currently working on? Fairly straightforward question. 5 is, what are the key qualities you're looking for in an ideal candidate for this role? Again, shows that you are interested in this role. Pretty straightforward. 6 is, how does the company support work-life balance? 7, can you tell me more about the onboarding process for new employees? Also a great question to ask because onboarding is quite important. 8 is, how does the company stay ahead in terms of innovation and industry trends? Again, great question. Innovation and trends are very important nowadays, so it's important for you and for the company. 9 is, what challenges and opportunities do you see for the team in the upcoming year? 10, can you share insights in the typical career paths for someone in this role? Again, great, shows that you're willing to grow. 11, how does the company foster diversity and inclusion in the workplace? You can ask this question if it is important for you, but it's not necessary. 12 is, what are the next steps in the interview process? Also, this question helps you to prepare for the next steps and also shows your interest. 13, can you provide more details about the day-to-day responsibilities of this role? Straightforward question. Good to know that, of course, before you accept the role. 14, how does the company handle remote work and flexible scheduling? You can ask that if it's important for you to work in a remote position. Then 15, what qualities do successful employees at this company usually possess? This is a great question. You can see if you have those qualities, or at least prepare and know what qualities you would need to work on. That's that for the questions you can ask. Again, I will remind you that it is very important to prepare these questions. You can write them down before you go to the interview, and asking questions really does show that you are a professional person who prepared for this interview, knows what he is doing, and is willing to grow with the company. And now we can go to our tasks. As I said, we will be having some articles and videos here. The first task is to read an article, right? And this article is pretty straightforward. It's 10 common job interview questions and how to answer them. It's from Harvard Business Review. If you are unable to open this article, please contact me and I'll see what I can do to get you to read this article. So this article just focuses on those 10 questions. It's great to search for vocabulary here and to get some ideas and have some preparation for your interview. So I definitely recommend that you read it. You can print it out, maybe highlight some vocabulary that you could use for your interviews. Then we have 20 impressive questions to ask a potential employer at a job interview. 20 questions is quite a lot. Of course, I suggest asking only a couple, but read this as well. There might be some similar questions here. It's great to just read and repeat. And then the third task is a YouTube video, Mastering the Art of the Interview. I do suggest watching more than the 2 videos that I will highlight here, but these 2 are a great beginning to just watch and see if you can learn something new, see how they describe. These are the people that are super professional in their interview experience, so learning from them is great. And the fourth one is focusing on talking about yourself, structuring a strong answer. This is very important because the way that you describe yourself will impact the entire flow of the interview, because your first impression is the most important one. So watch this, see if you can find any great advice, write it down, and just learn from that. So yeah, you can watch that a couple of times and just get all the best advice from it. And that will be it for our 4 tasks. You have 2 articles, again, asking common questions, so questions that they could ask you and how you could answer them. Then we have 20 impressive questions to ask, and the videos. I would say that that is it with our tasks. And yeah, So now that we have looked through these tasks, we are at the end of our lesson, and I would just like to say that if you really do all of these 4 important things for the preparation of the interview and also have that trial practice with someone, do your research and work on this entire process, I believe that you are ahead of most people, because as I said, a lot of people get the invitation and the next day they are in their interview, and that really damages their ability to succeed. So if you do all of this, you're not only helping yourself with stress and confidence, make yourself seem more professional, but you also greatly improve your chances of succeeding and getting that position that you are after. And with that, I would say that we can finish up our lesson. I will see you in our 3rd lesson, and bye! Hello everyone, and welcome to our lesson on describing yourself in an interview. We have gone through how to prepare for an interview, so today I would like for us to focus on how to describe ourselves in the interview itself. I do believe that one of the most important things for a successful interview is knowing how to present yourself to the person that is interviewing you. So today we will be focusing exactly on that. I have talked with a few HR specialists on what they ask for the person that they are interviewing, how they expect the person to answer, and what they personally think is important for a successful interview and for how the person presents himself in the interview. And today I will share all of that with you. And now let's take a look at all the topics that we will go through today. So the first thing is describing your work experience and your education. This part is quite important because this is usually the first question and the first task that you get from the HR or the person that is interviewing you. The second is saying positive and negative skills that you have, because in every single interview, the HR will ask you, can you describe or can you say something positive about yourself? But they of course will also ask you to say something negative about yourself, and it is very important to know how to answer that question correctly and to prepare for these type of questions. And the third really important part is cliché answers and honesty. So a lot of us will read some articles and will do some research on how to describe yourself positively and so on, and then we will use those answers in an interview. And usually this harms our interview because we use those cliché answers that don't really get us anywhere and they're not honest. And what HR expects from us is to hear something that is true and honest about ourselves. So this is also a very important part, and we will talk about it soon. Now that we have looked through all of these points, we can go and dig deeper into each of these parts. So the first part is describing yourself to the HR. A lot of us make the mistake of thinking that we should make the answer personal. And so we start talking about ourselves rather than our experience in the workplace and our education. And what HR wants to know is how you are at work and what kind of experience do you have, and not who you are as a person, at least in this beginning or in this first instance. So what you should focus on first is describing any relevant work experience that you have. So you should think about where have you worked and how long have you worked there and what kind of experience did you have, or maybe you have learned something from that position and so on. This is the relevant information for the HR to know more about you and more about your work experience. As well, any internships or practice that you had in some companies is also a very important thing to mention. So anything that is related to the role that you're applying, any experience that is related, you should definitely mention that. And of course, you shouldn't go unprepared. So all of this information should already be either in your CV or written somewhere so that you can remember and memorize all of this. And the same goes for education. So any education that is relevant, you should also mention that. Any higher education, any courses that you have taken, or any courses that you're taking now, maybe for this position or in general. So letting them know that you are educating yourself and you're continuing to learn. So To repeat, what you should focus on is where have you worked, for how long, as well as where have you studied, what courses are you taking, if you have any higher education, and if you are currently studying. And also not forget to mention any internships that you have had or any additional work experience. You can also mention any positive things that you have learned from your working experience or from your education. And I would say that would go a long way, mentioning something positive about your previous workplace, and the same goes for education. And now let's talk about the things that you shouldn't do. And I would say it is very, very important not to say anything negative about your previous company, because then you're presenting yourself as a not loyal employee. And I would say that this is just not a good look on a person that is being interviewed. Saying something negative about your previous manager or the workplace really doesn't help you. So I would just try not to say anything negative. If you want, you can say some positive things, but definitely refrain from saying anything negative. And as well, you should really not talk about your personal stuff. Remember, if the HR is asking to talk about your experience with work, then you should really focus on work. This is a professional interview, and they definitely don't care about some personal stuff that you have to say. So be simple and quick and just talk about your experience and education and leave the personal stuff out. If they will want to know something personal about you, they will definitely ask you. So don't say anything negative about your company, and also don't talk too much about the personal stuff, and try to stay professional and keep it simple. If you have a very long list of working experience, then I would suggest to keep it short and only mention what is relevant to your current workplace. I would say that keeping it relevant is really, really important, because they don't want to know that you have worked in this area and in this area and in this area. What they would like to hear is that you have worked in one area consistently and that you have stayed professional in that one place. Because if you say that, 1 year I worked as a chef and then I worked as a assistant and now I'm working as a developer, then it seems that you are lost and you don't know what you're doing. And a very important thing is to portray yourself professionally. So mention only the things that are relevant to this position that you're applying to, and don't talk about irrelevant things like working in a different field or in a different area. So now that we have talked about the work experience, we can go ahead and dig deeper into understanding how to say something positive about yourself and also how to say something negative about yourself. I would say that with this, it's very, very important to be original and to not use any cliche answers. Because usually people, when asked about saying something positive about themselves, they will say something like, I'm a team player and I'm this and this, and they will use all of these usual answers. And sometimes those answers are okay if they are true, but I would try to say something more personal and original so that HR would know that you're confident in being yourself and that you know yourself as well. So to understand any positive skills that you have, you should first think about that and analyze those skills. I would say that you can answer a few questions about yourself that will help you to get a deeper sense of those positive skills that you could mention in an interview. And those questions would be, in my previous position, what were the skills that were most valuable by my colleagues, right? This type of question helps you understand what are the positive skills that in your new position your colleagues could value, right? So this helps you to understand what you can actually offer to the company that is useful. Then the second question would be, what soft skills do I have that benefit the company that I'm applying to? When answering such questions, you should definitely think deeper and try to get the sense of what you want to say. So when you're focusing on the soft skills, think about it. Think what were the moments where you really thought, oh, so this is the skill that I have and this is nice and this benefits the company and I'm really great at doing this. Or maybe you have heard some compliments from other people and you can write it down and note that these are the skills that I have. Maybe you're really good with people, or maybe you know how to deal with difficult situations. Maybe you know how to respond emotionally to other people. Maybe you're very good at controlling your emotions. So these are all the things that are worth analyzing before the interview. And the third question would be, if people would have to say one positive thing about me, what would they say? So these questions are really, really good to understand the positive side of who you are, and that should not be very difficult because most of the people already know some positive sides that they have. The positive part is a lot easier to understand than the negative. Do your research on yourself, answer some of these questions, try for those answers to not be cliche and keep them original and honest, and you should do well with the positive part. And now we can focus on the negative part and how to answer the question of, can you say something negative about yourself? This is quite difficult because usually in an interview we don't want to say anything negative about ourselves. We want to paint ourselves as this perfect candidate and perfect employee. But for HR, it is important to know that you are human and also that you can be self-critical of yourself and you understand your mistakes and you understand yourself. So for this part, I have one question that will really help you understand what you could say about the negative parts about yourself and also how to understand what negative sides do you have. And that question is, what do my colleagues usually dislike about me at work? This is quite a simple question, but it helps us to understand what other people see in us negatively or what kind of negative experience they have with us at work. And that is absolutely normal for everyone. And I'm sure you also have some negative experience with your colleagues. And it doesn't mean that it's something very, very bad. It can be something very simple. You can be annoying sometimes, or you can ask too many questions and so on. So this is not something very crazy. It is just a very human experience to have some negative aspects to yourself at work. So sit down and think about this question and how you would answer it, and also what is that negative part of yourself. You don't have to say something very crazy, but something honest, that maybe annoys your colleagues or maybe has annoyed your colleagues before. And you can also think about ways you could improve that. And you can mention that for the HR so that you don't paint only that negative side, but also to show that you understand that you have those negative sides and you understand that you can work on them and improve them. To repeat, when talking about the positive side of yourself, you should focus on what is useful for your workplace to know, right? So any positive aspects of yourself that would benefit the workplace and that you would like to share. And when trying to understand the positive skills that you can share, try to analyze them at home, research them, and keep it original, keep it simple, and don't use cliche answers as much as you can. And with the negative side, just answer that one question to yourself. Think about how you can be annoying to your colleagues. Write it down. Try to understand that negative part. Try to understand how you could improve it, and as well mention that to the HR. And now we can go on to the next part, and the next part is cliche answers and honesty. What do I mean when I say cliche answers? A lot of us like to read about, how to talk in an interview, how to answer questions, and so on and so on. So we memorize those answers and then we try to repeat them in the interview. And usually the HR can feel that, and you can read this in the person's body language. When they are talking about something that they are not sure of, or that they don't believe in, you can definitely feel that, and that impacts your confidence negatively and also impacts the HR opinion about you. So when you come in the interview and you say, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a team player, and all of those things that most of the people say in the interview, it really impacts you negatively. My advice is, as much as you can, avoid those cliche answers unless they are really true about you, unless you you are really a perfectionist and you are really a team player. And then you can dig deeper and talk about it in a real sense of what it means to you and how you behave like this in the workplace. But saying anything that just sounds positive doesn't really get you anywhere. The most important part of this is being honest about who you are in the interview. And if you don't have anything positive to say about yourself, or if you don't have any real answers about yourself, then you need to do a lot of research on yourself. And this way, avoid those cliche answers that don't get you anywhere. So this is fairly simple. Having cliche answers usually means not being honest and not being real. So we avoid cliche answers and stick to something original that we have understood about ourselves in the research process, in the preparation process for this interview. And I also want to talk about honesty. When I talked with those HR specialists, all of them said that honesty is the most important part of the interview for them. If they sense that the person is not speaking the truth or is trying to paint themselves in a better way than they actually are, usually HR doesn't consider them as good candidates. And those people who come in and are honest and real usually are more confident and trust themselves more, and in the end, they are usually the ones that are chosen for that position. And being honest can really help the interview be more easier for you, because when you need to memorize or say something that isn't really honest about yourself, then it usually shows up in your body and in your body language, and that affects how you look in the interview. And confidence is a really, really important part. And if you speak the truth, then it's a lot easier to be confident, because that's just how it is. You don't need to pretend. So honesty is also a key to being confident. That doesn't mean that you can't make some things about yourself sound nicer. That is absolutely normal. But I'm talking more about lying who you are, or about not having a full understanding of your skills. Being honest means speaking the truth, understanding your entire skill set, being able to be self-critical of yourself, and understanding your needs. So all of this is fairly simple. Avoid cliche answers, stick to being original and being your true self, and be honest and speak the truth about who you are, what you expect, and what you need from this company. And now let's repeat everything that we have talked about. So when it comes to interviews and when it comes to describing yourself, usually when you are in the room with the HR or when you are in a call, the first thing that they will ask about you is to describe your work experience, describe the relevant experience that you have had in the workplace or in education. And we talked about keeping it simple and avoiding any personal information that is not necessary for the HR. You should just mention, as we talked, your experience, how long you have worked, and only talk about the relevant stuff. Avoid anything that isn't necessary and is not related to the position that you're applying to. Then we talked about the positive and the negative sides of describing yourself. So during the interview, they will probably ask you how you could describe yourself and any positive skills that you would like to mention, and of course about the negative side. Keep it simple and do your research, understand the positive skills that you would like to mention, keep it original and honest, and that should do a great job for you. The same goes for a negative side. Do your research, try to understand the negative part of yourself, describe that to the HR, keep it simple, and also mention what are you doing to fix that negative side of yourself and to improve it. And the same goes for any question that HR can ask you. So of course they will ask to describe your work experience. Of course they will ask about the negative and the positive sides, but they will also ask about your technical skills, and they will want to know what you think of their company, what you can say about their company, and so on. So the same goes for every single question. Keeping it simple, being honest, and doing your research. This is the golden rule for the best preparation, for the best answers. Keep it simple, do your research, keep it simple, and be honest and truthful about your answers. If you do all of this, your interview will be smooth, the HR will be happy, and you will also be happy about yourself. And last but not least, avoid cliche answers and be honest. I have said this 1,000 times in this lesson, but this is really, really important, and everyone that works with HR has said the same thing to me. Honesty goes a really long way in the interview, and being real is super important. They don't want someone who is fake and doesn't want to give you real answers. So be honest and avoid those cliche answers. And with all of this, I can say that we can finish up, and I hope that all of this helps you understand yourself better and helps you to understand how to describe yourself for the interview and how to prepare for this part. So don't forget, do your research at home, prepare, write down everything that you can say about yourself, and positive and negative, and see you in the next lesson. Bye! Hello everyone, and welcome to our lesson on preparing for interviews with AI. As most of you know, AI is a very, very popular topic nowadays, and it can help a lot with topics related to work and also for preparation for your interviews. So today I would like to show you how to use AI tools to succeed in your interviews and prepare for the interview process, which can guarantee getting the position that you are after and improving your career opportunities. Today, we will specifically focus on ChatGPT and how to use ChatGPT to prepare for interviews and improve your skills before you proceed with the interview process. I would say that if you want to improve your English and also prepare for the interview and get the position that you want, using ChatGPT is necessary. Now, let's dig deeper into how we can use these tools for our benefit. Before I show you how ChatGPT works and how we can use it for our advantage, I would like for us to understand what we can actually use it for when it comes to interviews. So, the first thing that we can use it for is doing the research for the specific position that we are applying to. The second part would be doing research on the questions that you might get asked in your interview by the HR. And the third part would be creating the necessary vocabulary for, again, the specific position that you would like to apply to. That includes any terminology that you might not be familiar with or any new words. And the fourth part, last but not least, is having a trial interview with an AI assistant. This part is actually very, very, very exciting and also very helpful. So now that we have talked about these four parts that we can use for our interview improvement with ChatGPT, let's look deeper into each and one of them. So now we can look into this first part, and the first part is doing research on the specific position that you are applying to. Before you apply to any position that you desire, it is important to understand it fully. That means understanding what skills would be required in the position, what is valued in this position, and also what can you do maybe in a short period of time to improve your chances of succeeding in that. And also understanding, do you have the necessary skills, and what can you do if you don't have the necessary skills. And as you might have guessed, we can use ChatGPT to do that research and to understand the position fully and also any of the values that we should know about. Now I will show you an example with ChatGPT how you could do that research yourself. So now I have my ChatGPT open and we will look into doing research for a specific position. The way that I would start is understand the position that you are applying to, right? And it could be, let's say, marketing specialist, right? So now we can ask ChatGPT, hello, I would like to apply for marketing specialist position. Tell me more about it. So here we see the ChatGPT answer, right? And it says a marketing specialist position is a crucial role within a company's marketing department focused on developing and executing marketing strategies to promote products or services. It also lists key responsibilities, which is market research, campaign development, content creation, digital marketing, and so on. Essential skills and qualifications. This is very important for us. Education, experience, technical skills, analytical skills, communication, potential career paths. So also senior marketing, marketing manager, digital marketing manager, brand manager, and so on. And also tips for applying. So this is very nice. Tailor your resume, highlight your relevant experience and skills, showcase your achievements, portfolio, and cover letter. So this is a very, very good way to understand the position that you're applying to. What else can we ask? Tell me something that most people don't know about marketing specialists. So asking these type of questions, and you can be very creative with your questions, asking these type of questions can really help you understand deeper the position that you're interested in. And you might be a marketing specialist who wants to apply to the marketing specialist position. And even for you, I would say that it's very, very important to sort of remind yourself what is happening currently. Just understand deeper the position that you would like to apply to. So ChatGPT answer is, while many people understand the basic function of marketing specialist, there are several lesser known aspects of the role that highlight its complexity and importance. Here are a few things that most people might not know about marketing specialists. Deep dive into data, so data-driven decisions, and that's true. So marketing does heavily rely on data. Then cross-functional collaboration, interdepartmental collaborations, then adaptability and learning, psychological insights, and so on. As marketing is a very, very deep area, I would say even if you are a marketing specialist, probably there are areas that you're unfamiliar with, and familiarizing yourself with these areas does give you a deeper understanding of this position. As I said, doing this type of research is really, really helpful, and you can ask very creative questions about marketing or any other position. So it can be related to IT, to analytics, and so on. So just do that research, think of the questions that you might want to ask, and do that with ChatGPT and put yourself ahead. Now that we have looked through the first part, we can go to the second one. And the second one focuses on analyzing the questions that you might get asked in your interview. Since in this course, we're not going to look through every specific position, what I want to show you with this is that you can research these questions for your specific position, whether that is marketing or analytics or anything else. I would also like to say that it is very, very important to analyze those questions and understand them, because you never know what you might get asked in the interview, and preparing and also understanding the questions that you might have to deal with doesn't only help you with the preparation process and with feeling strongly in the interview, but it also helps you with your confidence. And confidence is a very, very important part of a successful interview. So now let's take a look at how we can use ChatGPT to understand the questions that we might get asked for a specific position in our interview process. So now let's look into analyzing questions for your specific position. I have again my ChatGPT open, and we will look into the questions that you might get asked for this specific position. So today again we will look through marketing. We can go ahead and ask ChatGPT to help us with those questions that we might get asked by HR. So let's go ahead and ask, what kind of questions can HR ask me during the interview process if I am applying for a... And now ChatGPT will generate an answer. You can also ask questions for senior, for junior position, and that will give you an even deeper understanding of the questions that you might get asked. When you know the position that you're applying to or the company that you're applying to, you can really, really specify your questions and let ChatGPT know more about the position that you're applying to, and it will give you a more in-depth answer answers. Right, so here we have our answer. Technical and experience-based questions would be marketing strategies and campaigns. Can you describe a successful marketing campaign you managed from start to finish? What strategies do you use to increase brand awareness? Very nice questions. Digital marketing. How do you stay current with digital marketing trends? This is a very good question, and I think nowadays it's very, very important. Everything is moving very fast, and marketing especially, so understanding current trends and not just having the basic skills, but knowing what you need now is a very big advantage. Then, can you explain your experience with SEO or SEM? Give examples of successful strategies. Data analysis. How do you measure the success of your marketing campaigns? So on. Content creation. Can you share an example of content you created that significantly boosted engagement? Then we have behavioral questions, problem solving, and adaptability. Describe a time when a marketing campaign did not go as planned. How did you handle it? Team collaboration, project management, and so on. We have strategic and analytical thinking questions. We will not read all of these because you can read them yourself when you will be asking about the specific position that you're interested in. And then also a very, very useful thing for this and for you would be ask ChatGPT what would be the best answers for these questions. So could you give me a few examples of answers for some of these questions? And that's a great way for you to understand how you could answer these questions in a more professional way. So question, can you describe a successful marketing campaign you managed from start to finish? An answer would be, one of the most successful campaigns I managed was for the launch of the new product line at my previous company. We started with extensive market research to identify our target audience and their preference. Based on this, we developed a multi-channel strategy and so on and so on. So this gives you a very, very good and professional example of how you could be answering questions, and it's giving a lot of these answers for these questions, which is very nice. Another thing that I would like to mention with all of this is when you will be analyzing the questions that you could get in your interview, and when you will be practicing how you would answer them, or you will write the answers, I would say if you are not perfect with your language and you struggle with English, go to ChatGPT and copy paste whatever you have written from these answers and ask it to correct your mistakes and give you feedback on what you could improve with your answers, and then try to maybe not memorize, but sort of practice and remember the mistakes you made and what you could improve in your language. And now that we have looked through the second part, we can go ahead and check the third part. And the third part is creating the necessary vocabulary for our interviews and for the specific position that we are applying to. Since, again, we are not going to go through every single position in this course, and my goal is to help you understand how you can prepare for the specific position that you are applying to and what tools you can use in any position that you would apply to succeed in your interview. And if you don't feel very strong with your language skills, so preparing the vocabulary is actually one of the ways that can help you boost your confidence and also improve your skills with the language. And you can use ChatGPT to not only check the words that you might use for some specific area, but also any necessary terms that you might have to deal with in the interview or that you might need to know in the English language. So you might know them in your native language, but maybe you have missed out on them in English. So ChatGPT can really, really help you to build that vocabulary and to prepare better and improve your language for the interview. So now let's take a look at how we can use ChatGPT for building that vocabulary and for preparing our vocabulary for a specific area, for a specific position, and for our interview. So now we have our ChatGPT open. We will look through the vocabulary that we could create for our specific position. We will ask ChatGPT to generate some marketing terminology for ourselves. So could you give me a list of 10 words, or better, of 10 terms for say digital marketing? And it will generate an answer. I would say if you don't specify what you're searching for in the vocabulary, it will give you pretty general words. So So you can always specify, let's say for, managing a team, right? So that's more specific, or conversion rate optimization or something like this. So you can choose an area, which would be, let's say, digital marketing, and then you can choose a more niche area in the digital marketing, right? And that can be, as I said, so here, for example, we have search engine optimization. You can ask for 10 terms used in search engine optimization area, right? And just have a more specific, more focused vocabulary. But here we have those 10 words, and we have SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, pay-per-click, CTR, click-through rate, then we have conversion rate, CPC, cost per click, CPA, cost per acquisition, ROI, return on investment, impressions, bounce rate, A/B testing. These are pretty general terms, but as I said, you can ask, for example, can you give me terms for SEO? Something like this. And this will give you a more specified, more concentrated words for this area. And now we can see we have keyword, on-page SEO, off-page SEO, anchor text, meta description, title tag, alt text, SRP, search engine result page, canonical URL. Yeah, and also you have an explanation, which is very nice because instead of translating, you can just read the explanation, read the meaning, and understand the words. Yes, so this is a very, very good way to prepare and to build your vocabulary before your interview. You can also ask for useful terms for your interviews. For example, could you give me some useful terms for interviews as well? So there's plenty that you can ask ChatGPT, and it will give you quite good answers, which will help you to prepare for your interview. So behavioral questions, STAR method, competency-based questions, technical questions, cultural fit, soft skills, hard skills, elevator pitch, case study. These are all very, very, very good terms, and it is even more than 10, so even better. I would say that this is a very great way to build your vocabulary, learn about any new terms, and also not forget that you can use it to check your grammar, to check your writing. So before you go to an interview, if you don't feel confident with the way you speak or the way that you use language, or with your emails when you are applying to the position, you can check your mistakes and you can ask ChatGPT to correct everything and to give you feedback, which is very helpful in this process. And that's about it. So now that we have looked through the third part, we can go ahead and look through the fourth one. As I mentioned, the fourth part is having a trial interview with an AI assistant. As you all know, preparation is key, and actually practicing verbally and having a talking experience for your interview would be a huge advantage for you. If you can't do that with a professional or with a friend or a family member, then an AI assistant is one of the best ways to do that and to put yourself ahead in your interview. And thanks to ChatGPT, that is now possible. So now let's go ahead and take a look how we can do this practice interview with ChatGPT and actually practice having a trial interview. So now we have our ChatGPT open and we will have this trial interview with an AI assistant. So we press here. Hello, I would like to have a trial interview with you, and I would like for you to interview me for a marketing specialist position. Would that be possible?
Certainly. Here's a question related to emotional exposure. Question: can you describe a time when you took a creative risk in a marketing campaign that required emotional vulnerability, and how did it impact the campaign's success? Feel free to share your experience or thoughts on this topic.
Once in one marketing campaign, I had an experience where my superior didn't agree with my ideas, but I went to him to have a conversation. We had an emotional conversation which led to us having a compromise, and in the end we had a very successful campaign.
It sounds like you faced a challenging situation with your superior regarding a campaign idea. It would be helpful to understand more about how the emotional conversation unfolded and how it impacted the campaign's direction or or outcome? What were some of the key points discussed during that conversation?
Both of us had very good arguments. So I shared my side of the story and my manager shared his. In the end, we were both able to understand each other. I would say that being honest was one of the reasons why this conversation was successful, and I guess this impacted the success of the campaign.
It sounds like the conversation with your manager, Chris, was crucial in resolving the disagreement and moving the campaign forward. It's great that you were able to share your perspective and that Lana played a supportive role in facilitating a successful outcome. How did this experience influence your approach to handling disagreements or creative conflicts in future campaigns?
Could you ask me a different question about a marketing specialist position?
Certainly. Here's another question about marketing strategy. Question: can you share an example of a time when you had to pivot a marketing strategy quickly in response to unexpected market changes or customer feedback? How did you approach this challenge and what was the outcome? Feel free to elaborate on how you navigated this situation and the lessons learned from it.
So once we had to market a course and we had a set of ads, and sadly the ads didn't work out and we needed to change and pivot our strategy very quickly, we decided to give out free courses which helped us to gain more users and gain more exposure. I would say that this was a very positive experience. I do understand that it could be negative, but I am very happy with our result in this campaign and in the way that we pivoted from ads to giving out free courses.
It sounds like you had a positive experience leveraging free resources to quickly adapt and overcome challenges with non-functional apps, ultimately gaining more users and valuable experience. Could you elaborate on how you managed to turn the situation around and what strategies you implemented to achieve successful outcomes in the campaign and through the ads?
Thank you. I would like to finish our conversation today. Thank you for having feedback and asking me questions.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure discussing your experiences and strategies. If you have more questions or need assistance in the future, feel free to reach out. Good luck with your presentation.
So we had a conversation with an AI assistant. Sometimes it doesn't work so great, but I'm sure that they are improving this version and it will be better in the future. As you can see, you can just ask ChatGPT to ask you questions, try to elaborate and give it answers. You can also ask it to give you feedback on your answers. I'm not sure how great the feedback will be, but in general, you can practice answering any of the questions that you might want for ChatGPT to ask you. And also, I would say that you have to be very clear with your speech for it to understand you, but without this, I would say that you should have no problems. And this is a very great way to practice if you don't have anyone else to practice with. Also, I would just like to say before we finish this that you can only have this speech model in the app, so you would have to download it from their website. It is a free version, so you can use that in the free version. You don't need to pay any subscriptions, but you do need the app. You cannot do that in the web browser. So there's that, and we can finish up. So now that we have a look through everything that we can do with ChatGPT to help ourselves prepare for the interviews, I would just like to say that the preparation part is the most important part before your interview, and you should really focus on that. Focus on your skills, focus on your soft and hard skills, research them with ChatGPT, try to understand how you could communicate it better, ask ChatGPT to guide you through this entire preparation process. I am sure that it would do a very amazing job. You can even ask ChatGPT to be your assistant in the preparation process, and it will definitely do a great job and help you prepare for your interview. Definitely utilize that and try to get everything that you can from this resource. It is free, which is amazing, and as I said, you can definitely ask it to guide you through the entire process. You can ask it questions, help you prepare with vocabulary, help you prepare with what HR could ask you, and even practice for your trial interview. These are all amazing parts. The last thing that you need to do is actually do it and put it in motion and ask it to help you, and I'm sure that you will be very happy with the results. Now we can finish up, and I will see you in our next lesson. Have a great day and bye! Hello everyone, and welcome to our lesson on interview questions and successful answers. As you all know, the way that you answer your questions impacts the success of your application process and whether you get the position that you want or you don't get the position that you want. And today we will look through 8 questions. 4 of those questions will be more simple questions, and the other 4 will be more complex questions. And now let's go ahead and look through these 8 questions and understand what kind of questions we will be focusing on today. So here we have our 8 interview questions, and the first question is, why did you leave your last job? This is a very common question that I believe is asked in most job interviews. Then the second one is, how do you deal with pressure or stress? Third one, could you tell me more about your technical skills? Also a very common question in most interviews. Then the fourth one is, why should we hire you? And then we have more complex questions. So the more complex questions are, how do you stay current with industry trends and developments? Can you give an example of how you have applied new knowledge to your work? Then the sixth question is, if you were given a project with tight deadlines and limited resources, how would you prioritize your tasks? The seventh one is, what is one professional accomplishment that you are particularly proud of and why? And the last question is, tell me about a time you faced a significant challenge at work. How did you handle it and what was the outcome? And that's it for our 8 questions today. Now that we have looked through these 8 questions and understood what they will be about, we can go ahead and take a deeper look at how to handle each and one of those questions and how to answer them. And before we do that, I would just like to say that the page that you saw when I was showing you these 8 questions, you will find that page and you will be able to download that with this lesson. So don't worry, you can print that, take a look, and practice on your own. And now let's dig deeper into each and every one of these questions. So the first question, why did you leave your last job? I'm sure that most of you will have to deal with this question, so it is important to understand how to answer it correctly and be prepared for such a question. When you get such a question, it is very important to be honest and diplomatic. Focus on positive reasons for leaving, such as seeking development, growth, opportunities, or aligning more closely with your goals. I would also say that it is very, very important to avoid speaking negatively about your previous position and your previous workplace. For example, you could answer like this: I am looking for challenges that align more with my career goals, and I feel that this opportunity is a better fit for my skills and my aspirations. Again, to repeat, when dealing with a question like, why did you leave your last position or your last job, you should be really honest but diplomatic and polite and focus more on the positive side rather than the negative, and try not to say anything negative about your previous position, your previous workplace, or your previous colleagues. And now we can take a look at our second question. And the second question is, how do you deal with pressure or stress? And my recommendation for this question would be to highlight any specific strategies that you use to deal with stress in the workplace. And those strategies could be staying organized, prioritizing tasks, or practicing mindfulness, or maybe using some specific tools that help you manage and deal with stress in the workplace. You can also provide examples of situations where you successfully managed high amount of pressure or high amount of stress, and as well maintain your performance. For instance, it could be something like, I manage stress by breaking down tasks into manageable chunks and focus more on solutions rather than problems. For example, in my last role, I handled multiple tight deadlines by creating a detailed plan and staying focused, which led to higher results and higher performance, as well as project being completed on time and not missing any deadlines. I would say that you should aim for a similar answer that isn't overcrowded, isn't too long, is very clear, and as well you give some examples, you explain how you deal with situations, and that gives a clearer view for the person that is interviewing you or for the HR. So to repeat, when speaking about about pressure or stress, you should definitely focus on explaining any specific strategies or tools that you use to manage stress or to manage pressure, and as well share some examples so that it would be easier for them to understand how you deal with this, and also to visualize the process on how you work with those kind of situations. And now that we have looked through this second question, we can go ahead and take a deeper look at the third one. And the third question is, could you tell me more about your technical skills? And I would say this is the question that you really need to prepare for and try to understand what kind of relevant technical skills do you have. So my recommendation for this question would be to tailor your response for the position that you're applying for, focusing mainly on relevant skills for this position and for this job. You can definitely mention any specific tools or softwares or methodologies that you are great in. And of course, give the example of how you used them effectively in your previous roles. For example, I am proficient in this specific tool, which I use to streamline our project management process, resulting in a 20% increase in efficiency. And this is a great answer. It shows them an example of how you use the tool and what positive results you have achieved with that tool. And that's what I would like for you to do in your interview. Focus on the positive side and only use the relevant information when asked about technical skills. They don't care about any other tools that will not be used in this position. So try to mainly focus on the tools that you are proficient in when it comes to this position and this workplace. And of course, give them examples so that they can definitely understand that you know how to use these tools and that you can achieve positive results with them. And now let's go to the fourth question. And the fourth question is, why should we hire you? I would say that with this question, this is your chance to sell yourself. And here you have to emphasize your strengths, experience, and what sets you apart from other candidates. Why are you better than anyone else that they are interviewing? Tie your qualifications directly to the job requirements and explain how you can contribute to the company's success, because this can guarantee your success in your interview. So remain positive and show them why they should hire you instead of someone else. And an example for this would be, with my experience in the marketing area, a track record of having increasingly successful marketing campaigns, and my passion for the digital marketing industry, I believe can bring success and valuable expertise to your team and to this workplace. So this is a very great, simple answer that you can give them that showcases your strengths and the positive sides of what you can actually give them when they hire you, because of course they want to hire the most successful candidate and the candidate that can bring them the most results. So your focus would be to show them that you are that candidate and that you will give them what they are asking and what they want. Again, sell yourself and show them that you are the best candidate out of all that they are interviewing. Here we have looked at the 4 simple questions that most interviewers ask in the interviewing process. And now we can take a deeper look into the next 4 questions that are a little bit more complex and require a little bit more complex answers. So the 5th question would be, how do you stay current with industry trends and developments? Can you give an example of how you have applied this new knowledge at your work? So with this type of question, my recommendation would be, mention some specific ways that you keep up with industry trends, such as attending conferences, taking online courses, or reading some specific articles or newsletters. Provide an example of how you have applied this new knowledge or skills to improve your work or contribute to a project at work. For example, you could say something like, I regularly attend webinars and read industry blogs and try to get acquainted with any new tools that are released to stay updated. And recently I have implemented a new tool that I learned about from one of the blog blogs that I was reading, which improved the process of our new project by 30%. So this kind of implementation has greatly improved the success of my work and my team's work. And this kind of answer definitely shows them that you're interested in all of these new tools, that you do keep up with those industry trends, and of course gives them a positive example of how you have applied this to your own workplace and to your own skills. And with such example, they can believe that you will do the same in your new workplace, which is a very attractive thing for them to consider when hiring you. And now we can go to the sixth question. And the sixth question would be, if you were given a project with tight deadlines and limited resources, how would you prioritize your tasks? And my recommendation for this type of question and the answers that you should have is discuss your ability to assess priorities, delegate tasks if possible, and focus on high-impact activities. Mention your ability to communicate clearly with stakeholders about the limited resources and deadlines. And the example that I would give for such an answer would be, I would first assess the project's critical tasks and prioritize them based on deadlines and impact. And I would as well communicate with my team and stakeholders to assure alignment of this project. In past projects, this approach was really helpful and guaranteed the success, as well as helped me meet deadlines and deal with any constraints that I had. So again, when dealing with such questions, you definitely have to discuss your abilities and mention what you can do and how you deal with such things. And of course, give them examples so that they know that you have done this before and that this is nothing new for you. And now, when we have talked about the sixth question, we can go ahead and dig deeper into the seventh question. And the seventh question is, what is one professional accomplishment that you are particularly proud of and why? My recommendation for such a question would be, choose an accomplishment that is relevant to the position that you are applying to. Describe the context, describe your role, the actions that you took, and of course the outcome. Explain why it was significant to you, focusing on the skills and the attributes it demonstrates that are relevant to the employer and to this specific position. And an example of such answer would be, I am proud of leading a team to a successful new product launch that exceeded our sales target by 30%. It was particularly meaningful because it showcased my leadership skills and my strategic planning skills. When you will be thinking about these questions and answers, you should definitely think about your own examples and what you could say in such situation while using this advice. And now let's go ahead to our last question. That is the question 8. And our 8th question is, tell me about a time you faced a significant challenge at work. How did you handle it and what was the outcome? And with this question, they are trying to test your ability to deal with challenges. So my advice for this type of question and answer would be using the STAR situation, task, action, and result method to structure your answer. And you can use that for many of the questions that we had. Briefly describe the situation or the challenge, explain what needed to be done, detail the specific actions that you took, and end with a positive outcome. And the example of that would be, in my last role, we faced a major issue with a client that threatened to delay our project. I organized a task force, relocated resources, and communicated regularly with the client. As a result, we resolved the issue on time and maintained the client's trust. When using the STAR method, you not only showcase the skills that you have when dealing with challenges, but you also show the positive outcomes that your skills can achieve, which is a very, very great way to communicate about challenges. And of course, definitely you can use this for any other questions that you might have, and you can tailor this methodology to your specific position when you will be answering analyzing these type of questions. And now that we have looked through all of these 8 questions, I would like to talk about the task that you will have for this lesson. You have to do your own preparation. Just watching the lesson and thinking about these questions is definitely not enough to prepare for a successful interview. Preparation and doing your own work is the key point of a successful interview and of you getting that position that you are after. So what I would like for you to do for this lesson would be to sit down and try to answer all of these questions while thinking about the specific position that you're applying to. It can be anything that you want: marketing, development, management. Just sit down, read each and one of these questions and my recommendations for answering them, and write down the answer that you would give for the interviewer when asked such question. Also, I would like to say that while writing your answer, I do recommend doing your own research and researching your own skills, thinking about them, maybe Googling and searching for the right answer or the right words to describe your skills. And after you complete writing these answers, my other advice and another task that I have for you is copying those answers and pasting them to ChatGPT to correct your grammar and ask for advice. This is a very, very, very good way to improve your English skills and improve your answers before you go to the interview. Just copy and paste those answers that you have written to ChatGPT and ask it to correct your grammar and give you any advice when it comes to your specific answer. And then read what ChatGPT gave you as an answer a couple of times, try to think about it, analyze it, and apply it to your own answers when you will be in the interview. As I said, watching these lessons and watching these videos is the smallest part. The big part is doing your own work, sitting down and preparing yourself, thinking about how you would answer these questions and how you would deal with them yourself. So don't forget to practice on your own and do your own research and work when it comes to questions. And now that we have talked about all of these questions and about your tasks for this lesson and your homework, I believe we can finish up. Again, I believe you have to practice on your own and definitely work with ChatGPT if you want to achieve the best results when preparing for your interview and also getting that position that you are after. I hope my strategy for answering these type of questions will help you through this preparation process. And with that, we can finish up. I hope you have a great day and bye! Hello everyone, and welcome to our new lesson. In today's lesson, we will be focusing on vocabulary practice. This might seem like a very boring topic, but today I will introduce a new way of learning that is more interesting and more effective than the traditional way of learning, where you have to memorize a lot of words without seeing a lot of effect. As well, we will look through various business vocabularies, and that will include startup vocabulary, marketing, and sales. So, before we get into this new way of learning new words, I would like to say that I do understand that most of us have quite a negative experience when it comes to growing our vocabulary. And that is quite normal because in schools and with tutors, very often we learn new words not through effective ways and useful ways in our real world, but through ways like learning extensive lists of vocabulary and in the end seeing very little result because you try to learn 100 words and in the end, sadly, you remember only a couple of them. So today I would really like to focus on a way of learning words that is actually effective and useful in practice in real world and is a lot more enjoyable and useful for us. So now we can go ahead and dig deeper into this new way of growing our vocabulary effectively. So there are two main ways to grow your vocabulary: the passive way and an active way. The passive one focuses on building and growing your vocabulary through passive tasks like enjoying different type of content in English and learning words from context without putting too much effort and doing that through joy and a good time. And the second one is the active way. And the active way focuses on learning new words through actual work and putting in the effort and scheduling the time, doing exercises, and it is a less enjoyable way, but also quite effective. Now let's go and try to understand this passive way of learning. So the first thing that I do with my students when it comes to vocabulary is that we are trying to change the way that we think about learning and growing our vocabulary, because a lot of us have this mindset, as I said, where we think that it's very hard and it requires a lot of work, while in fact I would say that with the passive way of learning it is quite enjoyable and it does give really good results. The passive way focuses on learning from context, and I guess that a lot of us know a person that without a lot of effort, without actually ever studying English or any other language, somehow learned it to the level where they feel free speaking and they are quite good with their skills. And usually what happens is that these people engage in a lot of content in that language, and specifically in this case English, where they watch a lot of podcasts and they watch a lot of YouTube videos, they enjoy watching TV series, and in general do their research and engage in content that is interesting and important for them in that specific language. And what happens there is that they learn a lot of words from context. Of course, you have to understand the main idea to be able to learn from context, because otherwise you will not be able to give meaning to those words. But if you understand the main idea, you are fully capable of learning from context. So the person watches a lot of videos about the topic that they are interested in, and of course they don't know some words, and that is absolutely normal. But with time, when they hear that word 10 or 20 times, they are able to understand what that word means without ever having to translate. And this way we passively build our vocabulary with time, which is a very enjoyable way, because there's a huge amount of very interesting content, and this is the way that I personally grew my vocabulary and still am growing, because I'm constantly always consuming content in English. Another part of this is the fact that you are having a good time. That means without any pressure, without thinking that, oh, now I must watch this and now I have to learn all of these words. No, you are engaging in the content that you actually enjoy even in your native language. This creates the psychological atmosphere for your brain to be able and to be open to learn, because if we put our brain in the stress position and it has to learn through stress, usually you will not see any effect, because if our brain is in stress or is working very hard, the brain puts itself in a survival position, and that means that it does not focus on learning, it focuses on surviving this experience because it is uncomfortable. So when we do something that we enjoy and we do that in a language that is not our native language, our brain is open to learning and open to registering these new words through context and giving them meaning. What we actually need to learn the passive way is, first of all, find the podcasts that you enjoy. You can listen to them in the car, you can listen to them at home, do that in the topics that you are actually interested in or passionate about. The same goes to books, the same goes to YouTube channels. Finding the content, doing it every single day, listening, watching, reading books, and so on, and that way building our vocabulary. The second thing that we need is for the content to be on our level. It doesn't mean that you have to understand everything 100%, obviously, but you have to understand, I would say, at least 50 to 60% or the main idea. If you understand the main idea, then when it comes to new words that you don't know, you will be able with time to give them meaning and to understand what they mean. So to repeat, there are two parts. First of all, finding the content and using it, engaging in it, and for that content specifically to be enjoyable or something that you're passionate about. And the second part is for it to be adapted to your level. I would say that things like comedy or anything that you're interested in is a very good way to start. And if you understand the main idea, I can guarantee you from my practice, from everything that I have seen, it really helps to boost your vocabulary, grow it, and actually have a good time, learn new information, and improve yourself. And again, I will definitely recommend try this passive way of learning if you are not doing that yet. And don't be scared that you might not understand some things. I would say if the traditional way of learning has not worked for you, then this is the way that you really have to try try. It has helped my students tremendously. It has helped me. And this is a great way to include that language that you're trying to learn in your daily life. And now we can go to the second part of learning, which is the active way of learning. And the active way of learning focuses on actively participating in the learning of new words. What I mean by that is participating in different types of tasks and activities to learn the new words. And with this way, rather than having a good time and learning passively with time, you are actively sitting down, doing the work, trying to teach your brain to grow this vocabulary and to learn all of these new words. And nevertheless, this way is still very, very effective, and I would say it works very well combined with the passive way of learning. The way that we learn here is by actively participating and completing the tasks with the words that we are trying to learn. So for example, what I do with my students is that I give them different exercises that engage them with these new words. For example, if we have a 10-word list, what we will try to do is, for example, write a sentence with each of the given words, and that way what we're doing is that we're teaching our brain how to use these words. And this is way more effective than sitting down and trying to learn words from translations. This way you actually engage your brain and show your brain how it would be possible to use these words in different type of contexts. Another exercise would be to write a short paragraph, or to describe what you're doing right now, or write a journal, or any type of writing activity with these new words. So you take the 10 words and you try to write them in a coherent sense in a paragraph. And again, it does the same thing of teaching your brain how to use these words in different contexts and how you could use them in your own personal life. Another really important thing is to actively engage with these words through verbal practice. That means talking and trying to use those words either in the lessons that you're having or in any context where you have to speak English, and try to use these new words and adapt them in your own life. And last but not least, I would definitely suggest, if you have a list of vocabulary, for example, the list from this lesson or the list that you have made yourself, is every single day to give yourself 10 minutes to repeat those words and try to think of the ways that you would use them. In what context, what sentence you would say, or Google their meaning, try to read something about them, and try to understand their meaning deeper. Also, you can create a list of words while you're learning passively. For example, if you're not too lazy, or if it doesn't give you very negative feelings, while you're listening to a podcast or watching a video, you could actually translate a couple of words, or even without translation, just write them in your notes, and with time create some list, and then try to do all of these exercises and tasks with those new words. Especially if you find this topic that you're listening to important and these words important for your own life. So, to repeat, the active way of learning requires for you to engage actively with the words that you are trying to learn. And you can do that by completing tasks, engaging yourself in writing activities with new vocabulary, trying to think with this new vocabulary, and express your thoughts and ideas with these new words. As well, as I said, you can combine active and passive way to maximize the results in the growth of your vocabulary. And that is a very, very great way to improve greatly in a short period of time. And now we can go and look through the lists of vocabulary that we have for this lesson. You will find these lists attached to this lesson, and if you want to, I really do suggest printing them out, and when you have time, going over them and doing these exercises, as I said, writing some sentences, paragraphs, or thinking of some new ways to use these words. And now we can go and see what we have. So here I have my Notion open, and we have our vocabulary practice lists. The first one would be business terms. Here we have terms that are related to different types of businesses, and I would say that if this vocabulary is useful for you and you would like to learn it, to do that one step at a time and to learn 10 words and work with 10 words first and then continue on, unless you are capable of doing a huge amount of work and working with all of of these words at once, I would suggest to not overcrowd your brain and not overwork yourself. Then we can go to financial vocabulary. So in this vocabulary, we focus on the financial area of work, and this vocabulary I would say is quite useful even if you're not interested in the financial market. Again, I would say that if it's important for you to work with only a couple of words at a time, so let's say a list of 10 words here, and then continue on like this, we have words here like profit, loss, income statement, diversification, interest. These are very useful words for anyone that works in the financial sector or would like to work in the financial sector. Then we have management and leadership terms. These are also very important and very interesting, and since a lot of people apply to management or leadership positions, these are definitely important for you to learn if you would like to apply somewhere like management. We have the words and we have their meaning. If you don't understand the meaning, I would say as well that you can Google in your native language and try to understand what this means. Definitely do some research on the words that you are trying to learn and try to understand them deeply so that you wouldn't use them in the wrong context. Here we have words, of course, like leadership, management, SMART goals, change management, and so on. Then we have marketing and sales, also a very popular sector to work in currently. Some of the words will be repeating definitely, but that is great because it helps you to learn better. Organizational culture, leadership styles, mentorship, these are all the words that you would find here. They are quite important, not only if you work in marketing and sales, but in business in general, because a lot of these sectors overlap in different types of businesses. So I would say working with all of these vocabularies would definitely help you get a better position or improve in the current position that you have at the moment. And then, of course, we have startup vocabulary. This also, I would say, even if you don't work in a startup, but you might do one day, definitely learning all of these words and working with them, or at least reading them and repeating them, is a great way to improve yourself. Again, this overlaps with a lot of businesses, and being able to communicate clearly or understand what other people are saying to you definitely helps you in your career. So as I said, here we have all of these business terms, financial vocabulary, and other lists of vocabulary. They are all very useful. You might not need all of them, or you might know some of these words or most of these words, but going through them and repeating them definitely helps us and you to grow your knowledge and also understand others and be able to navigate the world of business and the world of startups, marketing, management, and so on. So now that we have looked through the vocabulary lists for this lesson, I would say that we can finish up. And for the last note, definitely look through all of these lists. If you can, print them out and try to work with them. Even if you feel like you are great and you don't need to repeat them, definitely we still forget a lot of the words that we use in our daily life or that we know, and repeating them does give us the chance to remind ourselves of the useful words that we could use in our workplace. Or if you are preparing for an interview, then definitely look through these words, because you might need to use them in your interview, or the interviewer might ask you something while using these words, and it will help you to understand them. And on this note, I guess we can finish up. I wish you success in growing your vocabulary, and I hope that these new ways of learning that we have looked through today will help you, and the list of words will also improve your skills in English. Bye, and see you in the next lesson.